I am Reynelda Jones, a mental health therapist who thinks outside the box. I'm connecting with passionate individuals using their talents to help the community. I call them visionaries and trailblazers. Join me as I connect with them today. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining me today. I am Reynelda Jones, and I am the CEO of A Solution B mental health practice in Grand Rapids, Michigan. And today I have Ruqaiyah Rogers. So thank you, Ruqaiyah, for joining me today.
Hi, Reynelda. I'm really happy to be here and thank you for the invitation to be here.
Of course.
Yes.
So one of the things that people ask me is why do I have these videos? And I like
Hmm.
to invite people who I feel are trailblazers in the community. They may not feel that way, but that's what I think they are. Or
All
they have a
right.
different approach to mental health or just different ideas or methods and how they feel they can help their community. So
Hmm.
I feel that Ruqaiyah is one of those people. And so
Oh,
I
thank
invite,
you.
yeah,
So it's an honor to be here.
yeah. For those who aren't aware, Ruqaiyah is a licensed clinical social worker, and she's the owner of Purple Pen Therapy and Consulting Services.
Yes.
So make sure you visit her website and check her out. If you have questions or comments, or just enjoy the interview, make sure to let us know below by clicking the heart, the thumbs up, whichever site you're on here watching this video or this live. Sorry. Might edit that out. So, Ruqaiyah, I find the name of your business interesting. Where did Purple Pen Therapy, like, what did that come from?
Yeah, there is a story behind that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Purple pen, one that is like one of my favorite colors, but there's a little bit more behind that as well. Me and my best friend, lifelong friend. We've worked on various projects throughout our lives. We went to Michigan State together, and that's where our friendship really developed. And we started out with actually Purple Pen was a publishing company.
Oh.
And the idea about people telling their stories is
Mm.
what kind of clicked in my mind when I was trying to come up with a name for my private practice. Actually, I started in 2014 with a different name for my private practice
Oh.
and with trying to reinvent, you know, myself and reinvent kind of the wheel of what I was doing in terms of social work. The name that I had before just didn't ring for me.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought about, kind of people telling their stories, what we do as, therapists, as social workers. And the idea of Purple Pen came to mind.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think a lot of times when people come looking for help, they kind of have this, sometimes they have this sense of shame,
Mm-hmm.
depending on the nature of the problem.
Right.
And, the color purple is kind of this regal, this royal type
Mm-hmm.
of kind of feel to it. And that's where I'm like, purple pen therapy. That's
Mm.
it.
I love it. I love
Yeah,
it.
yeah, yep. So that's where that comes from.
Nice. Okay,
Yeah.
so telling their story. I love that. I
Hmm.
love the connection. So I've
Yeah.
been on your website. I do my homework. I look
Okay.
at what people are offering,
Yep.
and people who are new to therapy or maybe they've had a history with therapy tend to think of therapy as just talk, and they
Hmm.
say CBT, but I seen on your website that you have brain spotting and EMDR. So tell us
Yes.
a little bit about that. Like, how do you use that, especially with the storytelling?
Yeah. It's really interesting because, EMDR and spotting are brain-based therapies designed to give people a tool to unlock trauma that's trapped in the brain.
Mm,
Um, and a lot of times people don't connect that when you go into therapy or when we're doing anything for a lot of times when we're talking, we're using a different part of our brain, which is kind of that neocortex, which is
mhm,
kind of that frontal part. But a lot of times when we're trying to get to the core or kind of the center of things, the root of things, we need
mhm,
to go a little bit deeper. So we need to go the neocortex, the limbic part, all the way down to that reptilian part of our brain where trauma lives. But
Mhm.
because it's so primitive, because that's where our fight, freeze response lives, we need a way to let that come out. So that was what was so appealing to me when I first learned about the approaches and modalities for EMDR and
Mhm.
brain spotting as well. And I particularly like brain spotting because in our role as therapists, we have to be able to build rapport with our clients, and we also need to have that trusting relationship, that safe space.
Mhm.
And brain spotting lets you kind of walk along with the person with the technique because a lot of times, like say, we think of talk therapy, but sometimes people can talk around the issue and really not get to what they really
Mhm.
wanted to talk about till the end of the session.
I know that.
It's like, what? Session and now we're out of time.
Mhm. Mhm.
So brain spotting allows by pinpointing in that person's visual field where they get most activated when they want to talk about the particular issue that they, you know, want to address. And because the person is automatically activated, the trauma or the problem is allowed to flow.
Mhm.
And as a therapist, you hold the space for that person, you know, and it's less therapist driven, less therapist talking, and the person is able to process that trauma, usually that is kind of keeping them stuck, you know, keep on coming up, interfering with all these things that we associate and symptoms with anxiety and depression and, you know,
Mhm.
all the challenges that someone may be having. And they are able to come up with the answers that they've been seeking all
Mm.
along,
Wow.
and we offer less of our what we think, and we have to learn how to take a step back, but then still be there
Mhm.
so they can feel safe and talk about what it is that's really been, troubling them, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that absolutely makes sense. I really like
Yeah.
hearing that. So I meet people because I
Hmm.
don't do EMDR,
Okay.
but I have tried it myself, and I have met people who feel hesitant about EMDR, maybe because of whatever experience they've had with it. So is brain spotting an alternative to that?
I think brain spotting is another branch of
Okay.
being able to process trauma. Now, what's interesting about brain spotting, the founder of brain spotting, um, David Grand, started, he has like a 25-year years of experience. He's a licensed clinical social worker. Um, he started out doing EMDR, and it's
Mm.
through doing EMDR that he kind of tripped upon the uh, concept of brain spotting. So
Mm.
EMDR's protocol is this 8-step protocol, and it's very scripted in that, step one, step two, step three, step four. But there's a part of it where once the person kind of set the stage, you come up with that person's like calm place, safe space, the spot that they can go to in their mind if they start to become, activated or overwhelmed.
Mhm.
Um, and when you're doing the bilateral uh, stimulation, uh, where you're using, well, you can use either a wand or sometimes people use their hands to do this movement across that person's, again, the field of vision, which, is going into what the brain is processing. He noticed that the clients that he was working with kind of became fixated on a spot,
Mm.
and instinctually he just let his wand or his hand just sit there, and the client actually ended up processing stuff that he thought had already been resolved. She
Mm.
started talking about even more stuff that she had never mentioned in 2 years of therapy.
Wow.
And
Wow.
he was like, oh my gosh. And so he was working with athletes on performance issues,
Mhm.
and she was having difficulty landing like her triple loop, I think it was. Um, and after she had that session, she was able to go to her practice
Mhm.
and she did the skating triple loop thing. And she said, "Oh my gosh, I did it."
Wow.
And she checked it again and kept doing it. And it wasn't a fluke that she was able to do that and go on ahead to do her competition and not be, freeze with trying to do that triple loop
Yeah.
um, movement. Um, so it's really fascinating to me that a lot of times in therapy, what we think is the problem is way different from what's actually going on in the
Right.
client's mind.
Right. Right. But that
Yeah.
just shows that when you address the trauma, whatever the experience is,
Mhm.
it is it is impacting a person's ability to function and perform in a way that
Mhm.
they would, they would prefer to perform
Yeah.
because she could have did that, but she didn't have the opportunity to do that until she had that experience.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. So Brain Spotting is a book by David Gran. And I did the three different phases Brain Spotting. I'm actually interested in going ahead and getting certified because I'm brain spotted. I'm trained in brain spotting, but I'm
Mhm.
interested and want to pursue becoming certified in becoming a consultant where
Oh,
you
that'd be nice.
train people in brain spotting and then help people get their hours that they want to
Yeah,
put in for brain spotting to become certified. So
that'd be nice. We need more
yeah,
people doing that, especially
yeah,
people that look like us.
yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes, definitely.
Yeah. So speaking of performance and brain spotting, I know that you address Black mental health and
Hmm.
social justice. And I know that
Hmm.
social justice issues impact many of us in a lot of
Hmm.
different ways. And it potentially, no, I know it does impact our performance
Hmm.
because there's a lot of trauma that happens throughout our daily lives.
Yeah.
So have you had to deal with working on a person's experience from a social justice perspective?
Yeah, it comes up a lot more frequently than people may think in therapy. And one of the things that really has, I think, kind of flourished, uh, I think the catalyst has been the pandemic,
Mm,
is the importance of Black mental health, the importance of representation, um, what types of things can happen for a person in therapy when they are sitting across or whether in person or virtually from
mhm,
somebody that looks like them because they can let their guard down and it's already sometimes difficult to build that that therapeutic alliance and that rapport, but you can breathe a little easier having been in therapy myself and having had a person of color versus not, it does make a difference. It really does.
mhm,
So I've had and do have clients that come in with struggles in the workplace due to microaggressions
mhm,
and many other challenges that they experience. Work environments that are not um, culturally sensitive. um, and they have carried the sense that it's me because
mhm.
everybody else doesn't seem to notice you know my frustration, or
Yeah,
everybody else seems to be so happy-go-lucky about being at work, and I'm just like, I'm just going to do my job
yeah.
and put in my time and go home. um and so it
Sorry. I was just thinking that the other day at my little part-time.
yes, yes. So yeah, it's real, and I think it has become even more pronounced in that people are becoming very vocal about
Mhm.
their experiences of discrimination and systemic oppression
Yeah, yeah.
and all of the such.
Yeah, and it does make a difference when you have someone that represents you in the space because you don't have to think about code switching. You don't
Mm-hmm.
have to think about, oh, I'm supposed to present this way or I'm going to make my culture look bad. It's like this person understands my culture, they understand my language. you
Mm-hmm.
know, I don't
Yeah.
have to educate them on that language, all that stuff
Mm-hmm.
doesn't
Yeah.
have to happen when you have someone that looks more like you.
Yeah. Yeah.
They can bring their authentic experience.
Yeah, yeah, definitely have the lived experience of the person that's sitting across from you. It may not have been, mirror it exactly, but it might
Right.
a lot of times it's parallel to what a person has experienced when they specifically are coming in because of frustrations due to racial intolerance, racial injustice, and other forms of racism and discrimination.
I think it's good though that you do address that. There's a lot of professionals who, maybe from their own personal experience, maybe they're scared to address that or it's not part of the treatment plans. They won't address that. But
Mhm.
for you to be able to take on clients and, you know, be open to hearing that from them, that shows to me that they could feel very safe with you.
Yeah, yeah, and when we look at the kind of the whole umbrella of the BIPOC population, it's not always just African Americans or Black Americans that
Hmm.
come in with these experiences. I've kind of had people kind of across a plethora of ethnicities who have these experiences and these, frustrations with whether it's, the workplace or it's something that's attached to work that they do in the community, or maybe it's within even their places of worship. So it really just, or it might
Hmm.
be they were just going to the store and they had a run-in with so and so and their words with such and such, and being able to talk about how it does trigger feelings of high anxiety, or
Hmm.
feelings of questioning their self-worth, and just a whole list of things that come up. You'd be surprised. I mean, I know, I'm sure you've heard it, and had the those type of sessions too.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Before we go on, in case anybody's just chiming in, I want you to make sure you put your questions down or comments down or like. I'm meeting with Ruqaiyah today, and she's talking about her practice, Purple Pen Therapy and consulting services.
Yes.
Yeah. So, who are the clients or who are the people that tend to find you and want to work with you?
Yeah, yeah. I found lately, and this was kind of my goal from the start. So, in a former place of employment, I was able to become a DBT certified therapist. And um, a lot of people, when they have had the experiences of trauma to me is like an umbrella, and a lot of different things can show up. Um, with what people struggle with in terms of whether it's their, work relationships, their, personal family relationships, romantic relationships, the relationships that they have with their kids.
Hmm.
So, as a DBT certified therapist, one of my areas of treatment that I like to work with is trauma. And under that, I find that people who are wondering, like, do I have this personality thing that people, it keeps this thing that keeps coming up. I have a hard time getting along with people, or, I tend to, have a lot of social anxiety when it comes to um, trying to work through conflicts in my relationship. So borderline personality is one that people seem to seek me out for that. Um, Concerns for codependency, again, relationship based concerns. The other area that has come up more and more for me is people who have been in domestic type of situations, whether it's domestic violence or just very um, difficult relationships they've had, abuse that they've experienced, particularly when it's coming with dealing with a partner or a ex-partner that has narcissistic personality disorder. So
Mm-hmm.
another area of treatment for me has been narcissistic abuse and recovery. So I'm finding that that's kind of been my niche within the trauma realm.
Mm,
Um, the other part of it is that um, within the symptoms of anxiety and depression, we know that a lot of times some of these symptoms can mimic other things. And I've also found that people, another area that I've liked to learn that I'm really liking to work with is ADD and ADHD.
mm,
Um, Actually, adults, particularly women who have been diagnosed later in life or in their adulthood, and particularly Black women who have been recently diagnosed with ADD or ADHD,
mhm,
um, and have found that they have been having a lot of struggles, whether it's been academically, within their career, within their, personal relationships, um, with that executive functioning. It kind of just opens up just this whole, like this light bulb goes on for the person
mhm,
once they've officially received that diagnosis. And I'm really passionate about this area because a lot of times Black girls and women are misdiagnosed or not diagnosed at all when it
mhm,
comes to the kind of this umbrella of ADD, ADHD, because the inattentiveness or the impulsiveness is looked at as them being uncooperative or lazy, or it's just something
mhm.
wrong with them and I just don't know what their problem is.
Right, right. I
Yeah,
see that. I see that a lot.
yeah.
So you mentioned relationships. So do you provide couples counseling or you do more like individual work?
Right now it's been more individual work, people who are struggling within their relationships. Again, whether it's with their parent and they find that they're having a lot of struggles with their own children, whether they're minor children or adult children, whether they're in, a long-term relationship,
Mhm,
whether it be a committed relationship or they're married, or they're having a lot of struggles within their dating relationships. And it's also connected with kind of the self esteem, self worth, which also is another vein of when a person has ADD or ADHD, there's this rejection sensitivity
mhm.
that's there also, and that can be part
Wow.
of the struggle too.
It's just all connected. I see the
Hmm.
connection there.
Yep,
Wow.
yep,
Wow.
yep, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. This is pretty
So
interesting.
yeah, it is. Wow. So so are you licensed? So can you see clients in Michigan or are you licensed in other locations?
Well, I did take advantage of being temporarily licensed in New Jersey, but then that emergency order ended. So I am working on getting licensed in New Jersey, and I'm also looking at Nevada
Hmm,
and a couple other states too. They're kind of up in the air, but definitely New Jersey and Nevada right now.
okay,
I'm
okay.
working on those licensures. So.
See, those who are watching, if you're listening, you may be in your state soon.
Yeah,
If you feel like you can relate to what she's saying and she may be a good fit, make sure to stay connected because she might
yes,
be in your area.
yes. Coming to your state soon.
Right?
Yeah.
So, do you have any events or products or anything coming up that you want to make sure we share today?
Well, I have been working on a book. Another part of my
Congratulations.
thank you. Another area that I do therapy for people as well is when people are dealing with chronic health conditions or chronic illnesses.
Mhm,
In particular, um, two conditions that I'm have a very personal relationship with because I have it myself, lymphedema and lipedema. And this is a condition that has no cure, the lymphedema and
mhm,
lipedema, but it is when you're having difficulty. The lymphedema is when you have a compromised lymphatic system. And because of that, we have our lymphatic system and it goes all through our body. It is what helps us get out the toxins in our bodies, the waste, all of that, you know.
Mhm.
And when that happens, that there's damaged in some way, our lymph nodes, our lymph vessels are damaged in some ways, it can cause painful and extreme swelling in different parts of your body. So our
Mhm.
lymphatic system is right underneath the derma, what do we call the what is it called? Right underneath your
I know
skin.
what you're talking about, I don't even know anymore.
I'm not gonna pretend to know the medical word.
I used
Um,
to.
I used to know it. It's right underneath your skin, and so you know when people say, "Oh, wow, that hurts," that's because our lymphatic system, all these vessels are
Right
running
there.
through the course of our body. It's right there.
Mhm.
Those vessels are damaged in some way, and a person can either be born with a compromised, damaged lymphatic system, or can come through a result of a trauma. For me, I used to be a secondary English teacher uh, in another lifetime, and I was had my high school classroom, and there was a fight about to break out in my room. So when I went to go over there to intervene, I forgot that the drawer of my desk was out, and this was back when they had those big chunky metal desks, and I hit my front of my calf on the desk,
Oh,
and it
wow.
punctured it. But you keep going, and don't think anything about it. Well, turns out it started having trouble like healing.
Mm.
And long story short, that was kind of the trauma that exacerbated a condition that I didn't even know was hereditary for me.
Oh, wow.
Um, and so um, part of my book that I'm writing is part personal in terms of kind of experience of having and living with lymphedema and lipedema, and then talking about, kind of in terms of mental health. Because when you
Mm.
have a chronic illness or a chronic condition, it can certainly impact and affect your mental health. And
Mhm.
so that's also part of the work that I do too, in trying to be um, have a support and kind of a mental health advocate in terms of people's mental wellness and kind of the realm of wellness within itself, because a
Mhm.
lot of people mistaken a person that has a condition or disease of lymphedema or the disease of lipedema as a person just being fat for no reason.
Mhm.
Lipedema is in kind of a short summary is when a person has abnormal fat cells that have are resistant to losing weight because the fat itself is abnormal. Um, think of it as like the fat is like inflamed. It's diseased and damaged within itself. So
Mm.
normal recommended medical advice for losing weight doesn't work because the fat doesn't operate and it doesn't accumulate like normal fat does. A lot of times, women, and it affects women. About 11% of the population of women are born with lipedema,
Mm.
and it is another very challenging condition to live with because people have this perception of person is fat and they're particularly large because of kind of the proportion of their body. Um,
Mhm.
and there can be a lot of stereotypes and a lot of misperceptions
Yeah.
around
Yeah.
what's going on with that person's body. So definitely all about body positivity and not having this kind of this idea of trying to shame people because you
Mhm.
never know what's going on with a person when it comes to their health.
Right, you don't. There's a lot you don't see,
You
you
don't see
know?
underneath.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Wow.
So those are a couple of the things that I'm working on. And then the other thing I wanted to mention is that on Facebook, I've had a community that I said I need to promote a little bit more.
Yeah.
There's a page called Black Social Workers Rock, and there's a Facebook group called Black Social Workers Rock on Instagram. as well. And then a Black Mental Health Collaborative is another community that I've been trying to build and promote because again, I'm, very much committed to Black mental health and wellness and kind of the intersection that happens with race and social justice. So,
Beautiful. I can't
yes,
wait to see your book when it comes out.
yes,
So, hey, like I said, followers, make sure you connect with Ruqaiyah so you can be notified when the book happens.
yes, yes,
Yeah, yeah.
definitely.
Well, thank you everyone for joining us today. Thank you, Ruqaiyah,
Thank
for
you for
letting me
having me.
interview you. This is
Yes.
great. I learned so much from you today.
Oh, thank you. I'm so happy to be here. And we've been friends for a while, so this is
Yeah.
like feels like a 360 type of moment.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah, yes.